While Mary Mackillop started her first school and became a nun here in Penola, her career and the order really blossomed when she moved to Adelaide. Now she started helping poor people and working with needy families. It's also where the Josephites got the name the Brown Joes. Well, Patrick Ennett's been looking at the Adelaide story.
She's now one of the most important people in Australia's religious history. But Mary Mackillop's life was dedicated to the poor and disadvantaged. And it was in Adelaide where that work really began in earnest. Within a few weeks of moving to the city from Penola in 1867, she'd started a St Josephite school for poor children on this site next to St Francis Xavier Cathedral. She was only in her mid-20s at the time. She'd also visited the Adelaide Jail and Hospital and the Destitute Asylum, which moved her to set up refuges for homeless women. Just 4 years after her arrival, she'd recruited 130 nuns for the order she'd set up and opened more than 20 schools and 4 charitable institutions.
Adelaide was extremely significant because this is where all of the works really got started. This was the beginnings of it all. We know Penola is an amazing place, has an amazing story, but Adelaide was the place where the work, all kinds of social works, started.
Mary Mackillop spent 11 years in Adelaide and set up the first mother house, basically a head office for the Josephite order, on Portrush Road at Kensington. There are still 25 Josephites in the convent, and behind it is the Mary Mackillop Centre, where Sister Patricia Keane is happy to tell the story of Australia's first Catholic saint. She says the Josephites were the first nuns in South Australia, but they were very different to the nuns many people had seen overseas.
They had only ever experienced nuns in big convents, big walls behind the gates, and those schools were where the children went to the schools, whereas in this situation here, the sisters were out among the people, walking around the streets, were visiting the people in their homes, were opening little schools in little country towns, maybe in the church, maybe in a little room at the back of the church.
A movie telling the story of her life, Mary, has been re-released because of the canonisation. It tells how the sisters vowed to live in poverty and treat everyone equally. They were a common sight in city streets and became popular with people from many religious backgrounds. They won support from wealthy South Australians like Robert and Joanna Barr-Smith and Emmanuel Solomon.
The men and women of the cities responded to the sisters so much, and they loved them. It was just, I think sometimes some of the clergy had a bit of a hard time accepting this. Franklin Street along here, a lot of significant things happened in Franklin Street.
Sister Patricia Keane says many of the buildings where Mary did her work still exist in Adelaide, and the Josephites published booklets of walking tours to follow in her footsteps. She says one of the most significant places is here on the western end of Franklin Street, which in the 1800s was home to many poor working-class families. This chapel is now part of St Mary's College, but in 1871 it was where Mary Mackillop was thrown out of the church for insubordination.
This is the chapel where the excommunication took place in September 1871.
Very historic.
Great historic place, yes. The sisters were asked to assemble, seated in here, and Mary was asked to come up, or ordered I should say, to come up and stand before the bishop as he stood with the few priests up on the step there by the altar. And Mary was ordered to stand and kneel before him, and there he said the words of excommunication to Mary.
It's widely accepted now that the excommunication was illegal and unfair, but a letter from the time says the priests were amazed when Mary didn't utter a word when the stunning announcement was made. According to Archbishop Philip Wilson, her extraordinary response to adversity was part of her extraordinary personality.
I've been a fan of her almost all my life. I think the thing that's really remarkable about her is that she had every reason in life to be resentful. When you look at her life, it's a chronicle of one sadness after another, beginning with her own family life. Terrible personal tragedies like her mother drowning in the sea off the south coast of New South Wales, her own illness that was chronic and with her almost her whole adult life, the difficulties that she experienced with others, including bishops, and her own sisters, and even the breakdown of her relationship with Julian Tennyson Woods. But yet she was able to be positive and loving and kind. I think that's quite remarkable.
From Adelaide, the Josephite nuns spread to other states in Australia. Mary Mackillop eventually moved to Sydney, as did the Order's head office. She died in 1909, but her work lives on. There are 850 sisters throughout Australia and New Zealand, as well as Ireland, Peru, East Timor, Scotland and Brazil.